what would it take to get on your level, Carl? Do you feel like do you feel like an elite athlete? A, and then B, is it just a whole lot of running and a whole lot of training that's gotten you to this point, or is there a magic formula there?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can deny the fact that genetics have something to do with it. Um, I'm not going to say I come from this amazing gene pool, not hardly, but yes, I'm not an elite athlete anymore. I'm not at that level because I'm just older and slower. But sure, I was certainly an elite at the top of my game from 2000 till kind of 2015, 2018 even. You don't have to be in your 20s to run a fast 100. Like I said, my niche was the 100. So in order to get good at it, um, we all have our limitations. Like I said, genetics is going to play a part in it. It's just the bottom line. You can't fight that. But to be good at it, you have to learn about efficiency and how can I maximize what I get out of my body, right? I mean, for someone that might be finishing Wasatch in 36 hours, and for some people like myself might be breaking 20 hours there. It's just that, but it is really basically a whole lot of running. Not overdoing it. I'm not a 100-mile a week guy. I run 55, 60 miles a week in my
Mm-hmm.
peak weeks. Plenty of vertical gain, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm mountains, but at the same time, I don't get real technical with my training. I get out every day for the most part, until I'm too tired, then I'll take a day off. And I listen to my body really well. And then I always practice the efficiency tools of like how to run your best 100. A great example of that was this past weekend when I won Love It, right? The Love It 100. I was in second place the entire day, just doing my own thing. I didn't focus on who was leading, what he was doing in front of me. I just did my own thing. And every time I caught up to, his name was Josh. Every time I caught up to Josh, he was sitting in the chair at the aid station, right? I would go to the aid station. I'd fill my one water bottle. I'd fill the other bottle half full of Coca-Cola and move on, right? So I'd stop for 30 seconds. He'd stop for whatever time he was ahead of me. Every time I left, he would either follow me or jump out right before me or something. And so I won by like 40 minutes or something like that. He probably had more downtime than 40 minutes than I did, So I maximized my efficiency
Mm-hmm.
to win that race. I mean, it was his first 100, so he did awesome. He did fantastic. But at the same time, I just try to practice best efficiency, get the most out of my body. And, for others to get at the elite level, um, all you can do is train your best and try to stay consistent and try to stay healthy. A
Yeah.
lot of times I've coached a lot of people over the years. I started in 2008, so I've had almost 20, 15 years of experience coaching. And the majority of people always want to say, hey, well, I need to do speed work to get good at the 100. I got to do speed work, speed work, speed work, because their background is generally the 10K, the 20K or whatever, the half marathon, maybe the marathon. Truthfully, in a mountain 100, you don't even really need to do any speed work. um, you need to just be consistent and stay healthy all the time so you can keep jogging after mile 60,
Mm-hmm.
because the majority of that middle of the pack, they'll do some jogging early and all that. They get to mile 60, you're walking all the way to the finish line. And when you start walking, the clock really starts moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose a ton of time.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said the race starts at mile 70, in 100. And I mean, that was very truthful this weekend too. But if you're able to jog late in the race and, keep your nutrition okay, everything's going okay, you're going to gain a ton of time relative to the field. And that's where you maximize that PR time or whatever. It doesn't come in the early part of the race. One guy I love it was classic. It was just a classic scene this weekend. One guy went off the start line, off he went. We dropped at mile 30. We passed him at mile 20 or so, and he wasn't looking so good. So it has nothing to do with, it doesn't have nothing to do with speed, but most of it really doesn't have to do with speed. It's about how can you manage your time and your efficiency throughout the whole race. You have to be very consistent. You're always going to be slower the second half. It just happens because your gait gets slower, you get sore. But but if your second half is like for me this last weekend, it was about 9:30 at 50, and then 11:10 was the second half. That's pretty good ratio, you know. I mean, hour and a half slower second half, that's solid. And this course was harder the second half. So that was really pretty smart running. And that's really the reason I kind of maximize what I have left in me, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you say that because I just did my first 100 back in
Nice.
November, and I know
Yeah.
you've done the Pinhoti 100 a
Yeah. It's a
couple of
great race.
times,
Great
and
race.
so and that's my home. I'm in Alabama. I live in Alabama. It's
Yeah.
kind of my home Pinhoti Trail. I've through hiked it many times. Love it.
Awesome.
But that last 5 miles, I had a and I was walking.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
feet were all blistered up. I'd never done
Yeah.
100 before. I'd never done more than 40 before
Right.
at one time. Well, I had a pacer with me, and she had just started with me. She's fresh. It was the next morning already. It was like six
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and she goes, "Why are we walking?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in a lot of pain
Well, let
here."
me tell you something.
And so we just keep kind of talking about it a little bit, and she's like, "Well, can you try to jog?" I'm like, maybe. I feel like I kind of convinced myself that I should be walking because I was hurting so bad.
Right.
I started just barely jogging,
Yeah.
and then just she started out in front of me, and just she kept picking up the pace just a little bit at a time, and I just kind of
Yeah.
followed her. And the last 4 miles, I ran at 11-minute miles, which I'm
Nice.
not breaking any world
No,
records.
that's great.
But here's the crazy thing: is, to your point, I passed 18. I counted. I passed 18 people
Boom.
in the last 4 miles because
Yeah,
everyone's walking.
that's right. And that's I say too, a slow jog is better than no jog, right? That is so that's a classic example you just said right there. 18 people you passed, right? 18 people because you were slowly jogging. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
11 minute mile is impressive at the last bit. That's really good. And I know the course, I know exactly what it was like. It's just trail. I mean, for the most
Yeah.
part, let's jump on the road, but still 11-minute mile is great at the end. And that's like I say, race starts at mile 70. If you're still jogging, you swallow people up, or you bury them behind you. If you're racing someone so fast, you're out of sight so fast. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy because you're walking. Having done the AT a number of times, I'm very in tune with like what my pace is. I mean, I've got a Casio watch. I don't use any fancy gadgets or
Wow.
anything. Yeah, oh yeah, I don't use a regular watch, just a Casio. But I can tell, I know how fast I'm going. When I was on the AT, my average pace throughout the whole AT was 3.4 miles an hour, right? That's on the AT, that's about as fast as you can walk without it being uncomfortable,
Mm.
like weird feeling. So, um,
That's
but
about
as
what,
far as go,
16-minute miles or so?
yeah, yeah, 17 even,
17,
17,
yeah.
So, if you're running, if instead of you're running 11 instead of 17, that's 6 minutes every mile. That's huge.
Yeah.
So you make a ton of time by being able to jog late in the race. And that's sort of why I gravitated towards the 100 because I like that,
Mm.
not really come from behind feeling, but it's inspiring when you're passing. You don't want to be the hunted, you want to be the hunter, right? That's how you finish strong.